We're back again with the Toyota pickup, and this time we're gonna be doing the brakes. We're gonna replace everything that has to do with the brakes pretty much. So we already did the master, the booster, and the rear brakes. Now we're gonna do the front end, and we're gonna replace the brake line, rotors, calipers, bearings, and what else? I think that's it. So let me show you what we got. So we got all this for a 6-cylinder Toyota pickup, but I think the rotor is a little bit bigger than the 4-cylinder stuff. So this is the rotor for the driver's side. That's what it's gonna look like. These are the brake pads from R1 Concept. The part number, they're ceramic. And then these are the calipers. Well, this is the passenger side caliper. We got this off of Rock Auto, and we taped it up because we're gonna paint it black. And then these are the bearings from Tin. We got these from Rock Auto as well, set 3 and set 5. And this is the stainless steel brake line from LCE Performance, part number. This is the rotor I got this from R1 Concept as well. So it's a blown and slotted rotor. This is the hardware that comes with it. So let me put all this away so we can start taking off the caliper and stuff. Alright, so we're gonna start off by removing these two 70mm bolts that hold the caliper to the caliper bracket. And then once that's off, we're gonna put the caliper to the side. You can see how bad this brake line is. So we're gonna put the caliper off to the side, and then we're gonna remove the two 70mm bolts that hold the caliper bracket to the knuckle. We already went ahead and removed the dust cover from the center of the hub. And as you guys saw, we jammed the screwdriver here so it could hold the rotor from spinning while the caliper was still on. So we could break these loose to get the rotor off of this hub. So now we're just gonna remove the cotter pin and the nut. It's a 30mm. We're gonna back it off. It's not tight, so you're gonna be able to do it by hand. And then we're gonna slide this off. We're gonna remove this clip right here. Try to pull it off. Slides off. Just like that. And then we're going to remove the brake line. And we're gonna cap that off with we had already loosened this brake line, so that's why it's coming off a little bit easy. So we're gonna use this little rubber thing that came with the new caliper to cap off the brake line from spilling brake fluid all over the place. So this is everything that we pulled off. This is the caliper bracket, and then the pins, which are a bit dry. The one on the driver's side was worse. One was actually rusted. And then this is the caliper. We're gonna reuse this line and this bracket and the rotor. So I guess first off, we're gonna take off the rotor and the hub. We're not gonna need the rotor anymore. And then we'll go ahead and remove the bracket and the brake line from the caliper. We already pulled the hard line off of the caliper. We removed the brake line. So you can see on this brake line, it was in really bad condition. The rubber was coming off already. There's a lot of cracks on this side. That's why we're replacing it with stainless steel lines. This is the bracket that we're going to reuse. So we have to drill out this hole a little bit. It needs to move to the left a little bit, this hole. This one's already opened up enough, but for it to fit, you have to fill it out. And let me measure this piston. This one measures about 2 1/8, and the new caliper measures 2 1/4. The piston on the new caliper is 2 1/4. This one's about 2 1/8. So it's a little bit bigger, 1/8 bigger on the new piston for the new caliper. I don't know if it's a big difference or not, but I mean, while replacing this, might as well go with something hopefully a little bit better. So we don't need anything else off of this caliper. We're just gonna set it aside, and we are going to drill out this hole. So we're using a step bit for that. This is what we're using, and we're just gonna open it up a bit. So once you open it up to the next size, just check it, and if not, then keep doing it. Just make sure that you don't go sideways so it won't come too close to the edge of this. So I'm gonna check that real quick, and then we're gonna throw it on the new caliper. Next, we're going to remove all the old grease from this hub. We'll try to pull as much as we can out. And we're going to remove the bearing, this rear bearing, and the bearing race. This rear seal came out pretty easy on the other hub. Use this screwdriver. Just be careful not to damage the hub. Just comes off like that. And then this bearing comes out. See all the grease in there. So we're gonna keep digging this out, and then we're gonna remove the bearing race. There's two, so there's one for the outer bearing and there's one for the inner bearing. And you just use a punch, a drift punch, to remove that. You'll be able to see it better once all the grease is out. Show you guys real quick. There is 4 little grooves where you could see the bearing race, and you can actually hit it on those 4 spots to drive the race out. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. Just be careful not to damage the wheel hub. So on the hub, you can see these 4 edges on the inside. That's where you put your drift punch, and we kind of damage the side, but the bearing race sits on there, so it's not a big deal. Just clean it up, make sure that it's there's no burrs or anything. Clean it up smooth. So now we're gonna get more access to the grease in there. Pull all that out. Clean it up, and then we're gonna clean it up with some gasoline, just because we want to put brand new and clean grease in here. That's gonna take a while. Let me go ahead and do that real quick. Now that we have all this cleaned up with some gasoline, we're gonna wipe everything down a little bit, just to get any of the leftover grease off. We even cleaned these little dust caps that go on the outside of the hub. Then this is the hub. We also cleaned the little bracket that goes on there. Now for the hub, we're going to wipe it down and wipe the inside, because there is still some grease on there. We're gonna wipe as much as we could, and then we're gonna hit it with the wire wheel and the drill, just to get it ready for paint. We're just gonna give it a light coat of paint, because you could kind of see this through the wheels. So we wanted to not look that old or rusty in there. just gonna hit it with this wire brush. We taped up the front and the back of the hub just to not get any paint in there, and we cleaned it up. It's not perfect, but it's better than how it was. I had a lot of the surface rust on there, so we're gonna coat it with some caliper paint, the same paint that we're gonna use to do the calipers. It's a bit windy, so hopefully we're able to get a couple of coats on there. While we wait for the hub to dry, we're going to scuff this with the red Scotch-Brite. We're just gonna hit it all around, get it ready for some paint, and then we're gonna spray this down with some of that brake cleaner, or acetone actually. We're gonna clean this with the acetone, and then paint it with the caliper paint as well. So it's gonna take a while, so let me go ahead and do this real quick, and then I'll put you guys back on. While we wait for the hub and the bracket to dry, we're gonna start sanding the caliper down. We're using the red Scotch-Brite. So we're just gonna give it a scuff real quick, and then wipe it down with some acetone, and then we're gonna spray it with some paint. While the caliper dries, we're going to set up the bearing race on the wheel hubs. Take off the tape. So for the front, the outer one, it's set 3. We're just gonna make sure that the hub is clean before we drive in the new race. Put the bearing back in the bag so it won't get dirty. We got the bearing, race, and seal master driver set from AutoZone. We borrowed it. We could install this. And this one is the one that's gonna work. Once we get there, we're gonna use the old bearing. The old race. You can see that it's all the way where it should be. That's it for the front. Now let's do the back. So you can turn it around and see if it's where it should be. I think you're done with that. And I'll just set that aside for now. Now we're gonna install the hub onto the rotor. This is the part number. We're gonna set the rotor aside, and we're gonna start assembling the caliper. We're gonna use the bracket from the old caliper, and this is the hole that we drilled out so it could fit. We're gonna start putting one bolt in. housing, and this is the little cap for the brake line. Next, we're going to install this hard line. Should go something like this, and just leave this side loose a little bit so we can install the new stainless steel brake line. Part number. Then you put the clip in for now. Now you tighten the hard line. Now we're gonna install the caliper. Make sure to remove the tape if you guys taped it up to paint it. So I'm gonna have to move you guys out of the way, but basically just slide this in and you thread the brake line in, get it tight, and then you put the clip back in. Before I forget, let me give you guys a comparison of the 4-cylinder and the 6-cylinder brake pads. These are from R1 Concept. The part number. We don't really know if it's a big upgrade or not, but I'm gonna give it a try. So, let me open this up real quick. This is it. This is the driver's side, so you can see that this pin was super stuck. There's even rust on it. That's because this rubber cap that goes right here in the front, it's been missing. So when we would brake, we would feel it wobble a little bit in the front. And this is the 4-cylinder brake pad. Well, there is a difference. You can see the V6 is a little more wider than the 4-cylinder. Just down real quick. It's actually not that much, but you can see the pad itself right here. There's a good amount of pad. I mean, I think that's about it, because overall they're pretty much the same thing. Right there. We finally got the seal in. This is from Timken, and it is part number 1948. Let me throw the bearing in here and pack this thing with grease. We're just gonna put the big bearing back here. Well, first we're gonna put some grease in here, then put the bearing in, then put the seal in. Okay, now that we have the bearing and the seal in, we put some grease on here, and now we're gonna slide the wheel hub with the rotor on. So have your front bearing ready, so when you slide it on, you could put the front bearing in, and that the washer and the nut. Now we're gonna install our caliper mounting bracket. We just taped this off because we painted these, so make sure that these rubbers go back on. And also make sure that if you get the V6 caliper brackets, they have a number 18 on them. We just found out that the driver's side was sent wrong. They sent us a 4-cylinder caliper bracket, so we're gonna try to either send that one back or purchase another caliper with a bracket so we could do the driver's side. And these boots always have to you always have to check them. So we're just gonna put our old 70mm bolts back on. and bolt this up to the knuckle. Make sure that these 17mm bolts are on there pretty tight. Next, we're going to put these little metal pieces that go here. We'll put a very little amount of grease right there. And now we're going to put the brake pads. That. And put the other one, and then I'll slide the caliper on. Actually, before we slide the caliper on, we have to put these little whatever you call these on here. And then we're gonna put the caliper on. Actually, one last thing before we put these pins in, we have to coat them. We're gonna use a little bit of this, and then we're gonna slide them in here so they won't be dry. One thing I forgot to show you guys is that these little brake pad wear sensor things, they go on the lower side of the caliper, so you just put them on like that, and then you slap on the brake pads. And this is what it would look like once you're done. V6 rotors and calipers. There's other options for bigger calipers that you could throw on these trucks, but we want to run 14s, so this is the only option that we know of so far. And I think this is gonna make a big difference because the brake line was already, you know, pretty old, and then the rotors weren't functioning properly. I think this is good enough for us. I think it should work. It's gonna be a big improvement. Let me go ahead and do the driver's side, and then I'll put you guys back on once we're bleeding the system. All right, so it's been a couple of days. Right when we got it out of the driveway, the brake pedal was still a bit spongy. We drove it like that for like a day or two, and then just yesterday we got underneath the truck and we bled the brake system out again. We went from the rear to the front, and there was definitely some air in the system. So now the brake pedal feels nice and firm. Huge improvement to how it used to be. And it could be that the truck just needed everything redone since it was a really old truck. The brake lines were bad and the calipers weren't working properly. But we definitely feel a big difference. The rotor size, I believe they're exactly the same size. I didn't see any big difference. The brake calipers, the piston is a bit bigger on the V6. The brake pads as well. I don't know how much of an improvement that is, but since we were in there, we decided to go with the V6 stuff. The bearings and stuff, since we were in there, we also decided to replace those. We're not sure if the ones that were on the truck were still the original ones from factory, but they were only a couple of bucks, so while we were in there, we decided to replace those. If you guys ordered the calipers on Rock Auto, make sure you guys go with the FVP. We ordered centric because we did everything centric from the rear, so we just wanted to order everything centric for the front. But when we received the calipers, they were in FVP boxes, and the FVP is about, I want to say like 10 to 20 bucks cheaper per caliper. We would just go with FVP next time. Make sure when you receive the calipers that it's the right caliper and the right caliper bracket. They both should be stamped with the F18. We received the right caliper and caliper bracket for the passenger side, but for the driver's side, it was a F18 caliper on a 4-cylinder bracket, on a 4-cylinder caliper bracket. So the brake pads wouldn't fit, and that pushed us to purchase another caliper and caliper bracket so we could get the truck done. So we lost like about 80 bucks, 85 bucks just to get that caliper bracket. We could have gone to the junkyard, and by the time we you know, sourced the caliper bracket, and then we got the little boots and all that. It would have just taken too long, so we just decided to purchase the caliper with the caliper bracket, use the caliper from there. We have everything basically from a 6-cylinder truck now. The booster, the master, the front brakes, the rear brakes, the drums and all that. You know, as you guys saw in the previous video, they all got redone as well. It's just from a regular half-ton 4-cylinder truck. We couldn't find a way to improve that unless you go with rotors and stuff, but we just decided to keep it with the drums. We seen someone else online use calipers and rotors from a 1-ton pickup, and we believe that those rotors are bigger than the 4-cylinders, and also the caliper size and brake pads and stuff is bigger. I don't know how much bigger. Hopefully we can show you guys in a future video if we're able to source a 1-ton rotor, caliper and stuff compared to the system that we have on this truck now. We just went on R1 concept and we couldn't find drilled and slotted rotors for a 1-ton pickup, so we just went with the 6-cylinder stuff. Hopefully you found this video a little helpful. Any questions, message us on Instagram or leave them in the comment section down below, and we will try to get to you as soon as possible. And make sure to follow us on Instagram at Yonke_OXC Films. I'll leave that in the description down below, and we'll catch you in the next one.